my name is Jeff Rolka. I want to thank you for checking out my video. This is a sort of a new video that I'm doing, a different spin of things here. For some time I did live events, and then I stopped doing the live events because I needed to work on some other projects. But answering your questions is incredibly important to me, and about a month ago I discovered the community tab on my channel. And so I posted a question there saying, hey, if you find this, leave me a question and I will answer it. And so now I shall. What I have here on my iPad are all the questions, and I'm just going to take them one by one. There were 14 replies, I believe. And some of them can be grouped together, so I can answer them together, but I'm just going to get started and dive right in. Thank you if you've chosen to subscribe. I suppose if you put a comment on there, you got the notification, so by definition you're subscribed. But if you found this and you're not subscribed, I hope that you will now. And do click the notification thing, as I suppose that next time I post to the community tab, you'll be notified and you can ask a question. Your support is greatly appreciated, and sharing my videos with your friends or choir members or whomever, bandmates, is greatly appreciated. And there are many other ways that you can contribute or use affiliate links, and those are in the description, and those are appreciated as well. Thank you in advance. Right, so I'm always on the fence about reading out names. I imagine you'll be able to figure out if I'm answering your question by going back and reading it or something like that. But I generally speaking don't read out the names, even though it is a public forum and you could actually go back and figure out, but it doesn't matter. I'm a soprano and I like singing pop songs and tangos, but I find it difficult because my low notes sound metallic or raspy. How can I sound as clear as my high notes? That raspy sound is because I'm forcing my voice, ? So that's a question. Good question. Possibly. Hard to say without hearing you. If you are a soprano, it also depends on what you mean by low notes. So for example, I'm a tenor, and I know that I can get really, really consistent tone to around C3 and maybe a semitone or two lower than that. But if I get much lower, I need to start making adjustments in order to maintain phonation, and my tone will change. And that's where it starts to get a little bit dicey. So consider the range that you're singing in. If it's just too far below the normal range of your voice, then you start getting into the vocal fry range. It's going to get raspy. It's going to get a little bit kind of metallic-y, sort of the way you're describing. If you can stay above that point, then that will help. But again, it depends on how low you're singing. If you are staying within the normal confines of the soprano fuck, then think about approaching those notes in a lighter capacity. Here, when I'm going down to C3, I'm really allowing my voice to diminuendo. I'm getting a little softer, and I'm also sort of allowing a little bit more release to occur in my voice. In other words, I'm flirting with a bit of airiness, actually. And that really helps to keep my phonation consistent. Thank you for your time, Jeff. Just a simple question. Are there exercises that shouldn't be combined in the same session because they cancel each other out, for example, or would hinder your progress? That's a very interesting question too. I'm probably going to say these are all interesting questions. That's like a carryover from my live event thing. I always find the questions very fascinating. As far as I'm aware, no. That being said, if you were to be, maybe not so fast there, maybe not so fast. Depending on your overall technical prowess, if you were practicing belting, say a major second above your secondo passaggio, and your technique on transitioning wasn't so good, then it could really confuse things, and it could make it more difficult for you to alternate between the voice where you're transitioning and the belted one. And that might really hinder your progress. It might make it difficult for you. Obviously, I've been doing this for a while, and I can choose to go either direction on those exercises. But I would expect that if I were belting an awful lot, that I would probably start to get a little bit more fatigued a little sooner on, and I might also get a little clumsy with my technique around making the smooth transition across the secondo passaggio. So yeah, that's actually a very fascinating, very interesting question. Long term though, I think as long as you're approaching your practice in a balanced capacity, you're probably going to be okay. That also being said, extreme vocal styles, like if you're doing a lot of growling, yelling, things like that, then that could wear you out prematurely in your practice and hinder your progress, meaning that you wouldn't be able to practice, or you might need a day or two off afterwards. The next question I'm grouping together with a couple. So I have trouble deciding which warm-ups to do regularly to keep improving, as there are so many types of exercises and warm-ups. Do you have any advice on how to decide on some exercises to stick to? Apparently I'm not grouping that. I marked that one incorrectly. I'm taking this one on its own. The warm-ups on my channel are diagnostic and technical exercises, and I construct them in ways to try to help you be as successful as I possibly can with either vowel alignment or registration event. The overarching concept behind the warm-ups isn't always made abundantly clear. Usually at the beginnings of the videos I tell you, like, this is going to focus on this, and I give you the delineation of the exercises. But I don't necessarily always give you the overarching theme there. That's not necessarily by design, though I do tend to talk about that in, like, I have a guidebook. I'm working on my guidebook right now, and I'm getting ready to release it really soon. And in that, I'll often dive into that more in depth and talk about the big picture for the warm-ups on the channel. Not all the time, because sometimes the warm-ups are just for general usage. And for a general usage warm-up, the daily warm-ups on my channel are the ones that are meant to be more or less universally applicable to whatever it is you happen to be singing. So they're almost always full range. They almost always, I believe they always cover all 5 cardinal vowels, and they will do it in a variety of capacities, usually including at least one agility-focused exercise, one exercise that focuses a bit on sustain, and then other exercises that are meant to get you ready to do the full range aspects of the warm-up. All of the exercises focus around vowel alignment ultimately. So that would be one way to choose your warm-ups, at least from my channel. A general way to choose your warm-ups is to consider the range of the songs that you're singing. Ideally, your warm-up would go a major second or a minor third higher than the highest note in the repertoire that you're singing. It would also cover the low end as well. A question that I have is it strange for a woman to have a tenor range? I have always been the odd one out as the girl that some alto music is too high for, and who can hit lower notes than everyone in my choir. Well, an interesting question. Now, for one thing, different genres of music will label the ranges differently. So if you're in an a cappella choir, particularly one that is all female, they will call that lower line the tenor line. And in truth, it will often exist largely in the comfortable range of the male tenor voice, though from time to time, those very same vocalists will be asked to sing notes that are far higher than the average male tenor might be comfortable producing on a regular basis, well into the D5, hanging out in the D5 area. That's rare, but it does occur from time to time. That being said, those very same tenors will be asked to sing a C3, which is quite unusual for a female vocalist, and very, very desirable if you've got those kind of pipes. All of that being said, there is an awful lot of overlap in the tenor and the contralto, what is thought of as an alto range. So, for example, the tenor low note that most tenors are pretty comfortable getting down to is C3. Most of your contraltos, very comfortable around that E3. And there's, a major third there, but not a ton of space. On the top end of things, if you've got a tenor who's comfortably making their way across their secondo passaggio, then that usually opens range up to them right up to about B flat 4, B4, and then beyond that they get another registration event and have to figure that out again. Those very same contraltos, typically what you get there is that there's quite a bit of comfort to G and G sharp 4, but there they get into the top middle voice register, and that can sometimes be very, very challenging to sing beyond. It's often confused as being the secondo passaggio or the quote-unquote break. But once one figures out how to navigate that successfully, then your range, your secondo passaggio, is typically around D5. And you get that range. That range becomes quite accessible rather quickly. So you can see there the vast majority of the ranges overlap. From the easily overlappable section is from E3 to G sharp above middle C, a tenth of space, and so basically, in short, is it strange? Not really. Not really. There's a lot of overlap there. Hi, Jeff. Love your videos. They're so helpful. Thank you. Appreciate that. What's your advice on how to protect your voice when you are doing multiple performances? Awesome. I often find I struggle when I am doing shows. What food and drinks should I avoid, and how much do I need to warm up my voice? Really cool questions. So, one, prevention is worth a pound of cure. If you can avoid talking too much before, after, on your breaks, things like that, especially out, if it's a club gig, like out in the club or with other people and things like that, that's like the surefire way to fatigue yourself. Room temperature water is absolutely your best friend when it comes to making sure that you stay healthy and hydrated. So room temperature water is certainly to hand. In one of my videos, I talk about other things that it can be helpful to have on hand. One, apples can often be very, very helpful in terms of clearing out and thinning the saliva in your mouth and just kind of providing a snack that won't bog down your vocals. Additionally, you might try some experimentation, not on your gig days, to see what works best for you. So I recommend apples because I know that I can eat an apple, have a sip of water, and immediately sing again without having any deleterious effects. If I eat a burrito and I dump a ton of hot sauce on it, I will have problems. So part of it here is you testing out on yourself on your off-gig days, not when you're doing a performance, what works best for you. So, do a little vocalizing and get going, have some food, have a snack, have a cup of tea, whatever. Go back and sing a song. See what happens. If it feels good and it's okay, then that's probably something that is okay for you to have. It's important to keep your energy up, which is why it's important we figure out what we can eat. One overarching thought I would offer to you is that high volume foods are probably almost whatever it happens to be is probably not going to be really great for you, just because if you're really, really super full, it can just be really, really difficult to sing. Going back to that whole burrito thing, crush a giant burrito, try singing after that. Not my power food. I have no qualms in saying, love the burritos, love a burrito, but burrito and singing, not so good, not so good. And far as warming up, depends on the gigs too. If you've got 4 1-hour sets, then what I would suggest you consider, if it's at all possible, is try to work the first several songs in each of your sets to kind of re-warm you up and re-get you back going. Try to avoid diving right into Bohemian Rhapsody or something like that as the first song of your set, unless it's unavoidable, and then in which case then you've got to warm up carefully and make sure that you're ready for that first song. But yeah, program your sets so that the heavy hitting stuff or the tunes that you find more challenging are deeper in the set, soon enough so that you're warmed up, but not so far that you're getting tired or getting near the end of your set. Having troubles developing my mid-high range. What kind of exercises would you recommend to help me? That gets grouped with, are there exercises you can recommend to strengthen upper registers? And I'm a tenor. Can you give some tips on exercises to help not carry so much weight in my upper voice? And can my vocal range get higher? I'm male. And also, if there's a way to reduce airiness, that's related in my voice when I sing. Also, you help so much to improve. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And this person loves my videos, which is awesome. I can always appreciate hearing that. I can never hear that too much. So, if you want to improve your range, then I would highly recommend you work on making a smooth transition across the secondo passaggio, which means you have to learn to seamlessly transition between your head voice and your chest voice, or your chest voice and your head voice. So like in that example where I was demonstrating the belting a little bit earlier, in each of those examples, I'm going from my chest voice to my head voice and then back. We practice that transition to make it smooth. If you cannot consistently access your head voice, even if you can consistently access your head voice, but the transition is not smooth, or you get very, very airy when you make the transition, then I would recommend you start from the top and work your way down. My videos on how to sing in head voice, how to sing high notes, those videos address these exercises specifically. You can find them on my channel. I'm going to try to remember to put a bunch of links in this video, so you may see like a link pop up and then you can click on that link instead of having to go find it. But if you do a search for how to sing high notes, how to sing in your head voice on my channel, then you will find those videos, and they take you through that process. The main takeaway here is that you're going to start from the top and work your way down, because we have to establish that you can actually access your cricothyroid dominant singing voice, your head voice. And then we work towards gaining consistent, predictable access to it. So in the exercises, every time you go, you're accessing your head voice. And when you can do that very, very consistently, then you start to work the exercises ascending too. And in that way, you start to rewrite those old habits of pushing out those high notes. And it all goes from there. I did a step-by-step method for that technique. Now, granted, it's addressed in short format here on the channel, but I also did a different, a whole new website with a program to help you establish consistent phonation across the secondo passaggio. I called it High Note Bootcamp, and the enrollment for that opens twice per year. So if you want to be notified of when that enrollment opens, go to jeffrolka.com, sign up for the newsletter, and you'll be notified of when my guidebook comes out, which is going to be pretty soon, when enrollment opens for High Note Bootcamp, which will be in March, April. Then you can be notified of that and get involved in it if you should so choose. There's like 50 some videos in that series and 20 some odd MP3 downloads. You can download the whole course if you want, or you can work off the website. But I feel I'm quite pleased with that delineation of the technique and how it works to help people establish consistent phonation to the head voice and then begin the process of smoothing out the transition. Right. Do you have any tips for singing while playing an instrument, such as guitar or piano? I know I have asked this question in the past and cannot remember if it was answered. If you have a link to that answer, I'd love to see it. I need to do another one of those videos, quite frankly. I did one ages and ages ago about the piano. But I'm going to give you a really, really quick hit tip right here, right now. And it's specific about playing the piano. So we're going to switch views for a moment. Okay, so here we are in the key of C. You can see my hand there. And here is the really, really fast tip for you, is that this is said to be root position for C. Now, I hope it's not shaking too much. I'm holding the camera with my left hand and playing with my right. But I would highly recommend, in the keys that you typically work on your songs in, learn to go from the 1 chord to the 4 chord, and then to the 5 chord. 5, 7 is that, and back to 1. If you learn that, in all your key areas, then you can very quickly harmonize the vast majority of popular music songs with the addition of only 1 or maybe 2 other chords. And the familiarity of that hand position will help you to be more and more comfortable singing and playing. And since it's all very nicely in closed position, you also don't have to look down as much to move your hand. I should have also mentioned too, when I had the camera there, if you only play the root and third of your 1 chord, but play the root of the 6th chord in the bass, then you don't even have to change positions for that. So one of the most popular chord progressions in the world is used for the overwhelming majority of hit songs. This. You don't have to move your hands at all to get to it. Just small shifts of these fingers, and you have to play the bass with your left hand. That would be the fast tip for accompanying oneself on piano. Some of the other bigger picture items are things like keep your accompaniment simple, if at all possible. Allow them to build in complexity as you get more and more confident and comfortable accompanying yourself. That can mean things like using a capo when you're on a guitar, so you can stick to predominantly open kind of chord facings, your sort of G, C, D, E, A. I believe it's called the caged system or something like that, where you're primarily using those shapes. That can make accompanying yourself a lot easier. Finally, I would really recommend you use a metronome and also practice your skills separately. So use a metronome while you're playing your guitar or your piano, practicing your parts, really establishing good, solid rhythm. Keep the metronome going while you're working on your vocal part and integrating the guitar with the vocal or piano and vocal. And then obviously you take the metronome away when you're performing, unless you're playing with a band, in which case then You're all really responsible for the pulse, but you'll be working together to maintain it. If I haven't said so directly, practice the elements separately as well as putting them together. Think of the integration of your singing and playing as its own separate practice, separate still from practicing your piano or your guitar skills. Right. And like I said, I need to do another one of those videos on that. Jeff, I struggle with releasing a lot of air when I sing, so singing is very breathy. I take in enough air, but it is all gone before I can end my phrase. I realize that I'm squeezing my stomach to try and finish the phrase, but that is unhealthy and painful. Well, if it hurts, just stop. Let that be like the one big rule that covers all the stuff, whatever it happens to be. If it's hurting you, stop. Stop. Reevaluate. How do I control how much air I release while singing? How can I break these unhealthy habits? I would go back to the very, very beginning of vocal technique. I would work on chord closure exercises and beginner vowel alignment because they will address the breathiness directly. The breathiness is because the vocal fold is not closing adequately. Now, whether that's because you're really pushing an awful lot of air or you've just got separation there because you're not really using your voice efficiently, beginner exercises will have very short vowel syllables. Wee, 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 wee. That gives you an opportunity to see how the vocal fold can adduct in an efficient capacity. And then my exercises, they're often called hybrid exercises or connecting notes exercises on my channel, will take you from those exercises to melismatic singing. Wee, 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 wee. The idea there being that you use the short notes to set things up, and then you go on to the melisma and see if you can maintain it and develop a feeling for what that's like to use your vocal fold that efficiently, and then expand outwards from there. I should also say, too, limit your range. Keep your range to a fairly limited tessitura. As comfortable an area of your voice as you can find. I'm a mezzo. I've found that if I sing along with popular songs, lower range vocals, then I have difficulty singing in my normal range. Why? Quite possibly, it could be something as simple as that when we vocalize ourselves to one range or another of our voices, it can be quite challenging to then go into the other ranges. So, for example, if I were getting ready to do a show, the vast majority of my songs exist between F3 and A4, right? F3 to A4 is primarily where I write most of my lead vocal melodies. So I'm going to vocalize myself primarily to that range. And if I then immediately turned around and said, okay, Jeff, sing the C3, well, I'll certainly be able to sing it. And I've done, enough vocalizations in my days where I'll still be able to do so comfortably and confidently. But it won't be quite as comfortable nor as confident as if I had included that in my warm-up vocalization. So it could be something as simple as that. It could also be that if they're below your primo passaggio, and the mezzo primo passaggio is typically around F4, if they're all down below that, then you're not accessing your middle voice at all, then the amount of cricothyroid activity below that point is really minimal, and you could really you wouldn't get locked out for long, I would imagine, but you could almost get like what's called a throat lock, where you've vocalized so much below the secondo passaggio, and the activity of the cricothyroid muscles, these are the muscles that elongate the vocal fold and help you access the head voice. The action of those has been reduced so much that you're just not really used to using them again. And so getting into that middle range of your voice could be quite challenging. I would imagine that it's one of those things. And unless I am mistaken, that's it. Thank you so much for putting those really cool questions in the community tab. I'll post there again if I'm going to do this. I do quite enjoy taking your questions, but I'm still not sure on the new format, whether I'm going to go back to live events or use the community tab or something that I haven't quite figured out yet. Thank you so much for watching. I hope I've answered your question. If you got any comments, leave them in the comments or find me on Twitter. Thank you. Take really good care of your voices, enjoy singing, and hopefully we'll see you again. Bye.